Welcome to the CEN show, a platform where we learn from the world community. I am your host, Roski Mascani, and on our panel this evening, we have Professor Amin Ra, we have Brother Mashinda, we have Brother Joe Hembrick, historian, and we have Miss Melody Tyson here. And our guest this evening is Mr. Tim Tyson. And the topic for this evening is the untold truth about retirement. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Brother Tim. Welcome and take on over.
Thank you. Thank you, Rasaki. First, I just want to give some shout outs, some acknowledgments for having this opportunity. It goes back to our CUSD affiliation in the school district, and I was having a conversation with, as I refer to her as my Apache mom, as Mrs. Randall. She and I were conversing about what I was doing currently, and she referenced Barry Thomas. And so she said, that's her other son, her older son. So she said, you guys need to talk. You need to work some things through. And of course, you all know Barry. And so Barry said, you need to talk with, of course, your brothers regarding your efforts and what you're doing here in the community. So my thanks to the both of them. And then for you all having the platform to accept me and allow me to share some knowledge that I believe is certainly of value to the community. So as you know, the theme is as I've referred to it, the untold truth about retirement. How did I get here? Why? Well, I kind of want you to visualize this because it touched my heart. And that was a senior client of mine that was a former school teacher in a nearby district was facing foreclosure. And we did everything we could. And I'm not exactly sure to this day how she was able to accomplish it, but she was able to get out of foreclosure. So that went away, but I would continue to read information and articles that would give indication that seniors were again facing foreclosure and bankruptcy. And then finally it happened. Somebody called, said, there's a senior in foreclosure, can you help them? And I did everything I could to assist, but the end result was they were in foreclosure. So when I said visualize, think of an 85-year-old husband and wife being served notice by the sheriff's department to be removed from their property. What that evokes, feelings of sadness, disgust, anger, the question, how could this happen? Now, at the end of the day, there might be a lot of stories as to the why, whether it was medical, whether somebody was suing them, whatever the case may be. But the simple answer is they didn't have the money to pay, right? People might ask, well, what about the kids? The kids' inheritance, couldn't they have borrowed? The situation was bleak as it relates to traditional credit and things of that nature. So nothing was really able to be done other than maybe a last-ditch effort to sell, but they didn't know that, and they lost their property. That really touched me. So I was crushed. So it was a matter of, what am I going to do about it? Am I just going to allow it to happen? So that raised the bar for me to say, I've got to say something, do something, be like a first responder, and alert my community, alert those that I work with, those that I know, because all of us know some seniors. If your parents aren't alive, my parents are deceased, my in-laws are deceased, but all of you may have a parent, parents, grandparents, big mama, aunt, aunts, uncles that are in situations that don't have understanding of some of the basics, or as I like to say, the untold truths that go with retirement. So I kind of open up the presentation this way with the statement, and that is, if what you thought you knew to be true turned out not to be true, when would you want to know the truth? So for me, a lot of these truths are actually objectives. They're facts. My degree is in economics, and I'm looking at statistics all the time and evaluating and being analytical and saying, if that's the end result, like a doctor, what can we prescribe as a solution to prevent these things from taking place as it relates to our seniors? So again, I thank you all for allowing me to share the information because it is a community effort. I'm hoping to take the message from what was simply grassroots marketing, print media, to now where we have a platform of the World Wide Web to get others to start thinking about the facts, the other side of the story. So here's a principle that I often use in my life, some daily decision is a Bible proverb, Proverbs, the 18th chapter, verse 13, which basically says, when anyone replies to a matter before he hears the facts, it is foolish and humiliating. So I'm not asking everyone to necessarily agree with everything I say, but consider what's factual, what's truthful, what may be beneficial to help a person in their current situation or to help somebody else. Because basically it's information. What we do with the information is certainly what's empowering, especially if it will benefit us. So what I hope to do is, again, establish what the goals are here with me, how we're going to do it, my objectives, who this might benefit. So the goal is, again, to stop an unnecessary transfer of wealth and to create generational wealth and legacies. And then you might say, well, how are we going to do it? Got to get everybody's attention, at least to listen. Again, like that alert. So, my theme has to do with retirement. Look at my background, beautiful scene, Adirondack chairs behind me. But retirement is a job, and it requires continuous management, whether it's done by the retiree or putting together a team who understands the elements that are involved. So again, we're going to tell the untold truth. Some don't know it, some know it, may have willingly overlooked it, because if you have adequate income, sometimes you just bypass everything. But the fact remains is it's a costly proposition to ignore many of those facts. So who might want to listen? Who might benefit from this? I say everybody, because either you're an individual approaching retirement, you are an individual in retirement, you are the child of someone that's in retirement or grandchild of someone, and you're listening and saying, Big Mama's always asking me, or Grandpa's always asking me these questions, and I really don't know. And you Google, and there's just a plethora of information. Oftentimes there's misinformation. So a platform such as yours is revealing truths and understanding from trusted professionals and advisors can be just what a lot of these persons are looking for, to say, I'm past barrier one because it's somebody I trust. And I've listened a few times and they're telling the truth. So I'm going to add them to my team. I can trust what they have to say. And now let's help me move forward, protecting me from these scams, from misappropriating my own funds, mismanagement, to be able to, again, to move forward with my goals and objectives as a person. So basically, I want us all to be held accountable. There's no more, I didn't know anybody that could help. But for us, again, like your theme and your platform within the community, hey, I don't know, but like Barry did, hey, there's a young brother over here. This is what he's doing. Let me introduce him to you all, to introduce him to the community. I don't know a specialist. Hey, but let's pick up the phone and be resourceful within the network, within the community, worldwide. Let's find somebody who can assist with that information to help me make a better, wiser decision as I move forward. We call it a retired state, not just retirement, but a retired state of mind. That's where we find peace, contentment, happiness, joy. Like that photo of me and my wife, that's my girl all the way back to high school. That's contentment, peaceful. I'm joyous. So we're going to focus again on the untold truth about retirement. And it's where we discovered at Tyson Financial Group that retirees pay out too much in fees, interest, and taxes. So we want that alert to go out. It's not just for individuals and their immediate family or trusted advisors and beneficiaries, but also professionals who cater to seniors, and also organizations that support seniors and their respective families, to understand we're bringing the truth and to help dispel a lot of myths, and as well help to understand the truth. So I've broken it down basically into three sections. It's the retirement island, storms ahead, and then moving to higher ground. So retirement island, what's that? We're here. Many of those that might be listening or may hear this in the future are already in retirement. And for the most part, if nothing has yet to happen, a major event or storm in your life, your head might be buried in the sand because you're saying, I'm good. My family's good. My health is good. I've got adequate money. But those who end up in bankruptcy or foreclosure for a period of time thought the exact same thing. Because all it takes is an unexpected, powerful storm, tsunami, or anything in that magnitude, and your financial dreams in your life is turned upside down. So my role and those who are part of my team, our objective and goal is, again, like first responders with that bullhorn sounding alert. Hey, storms ahead. And here's what the potential risks are if you ignore them and what could potentially happen to you. What do all those storms have in common? They cost money. Loss of a spouse, long-term care, health care, deductibles, homeowners insurance. I mean, the list goes on. And so again, sometimes we forget those things and we want persons to remain alert and be able to manage their affairs while in retirement. And this might be something new. Many of you on the air, especially in the educational realm that I know personally, have advanced degrees, doctorates, et cetera, and you've managed your career, you've managed your profession well. But I'll ask the question, most of us have had limited knowledge in managing assets or income. We're recipients and beneficiaries of pensions, Social Security, retirement plans, 401k, 403b, and the like. But the opportunity to manage those monies, to grow those assets, especially in our respective communities, Black and Brown, have been limited. So using our collective resources and some of the strategies we've considered and situations we've come up with are allowing persons to accomplish those goals that they have in mind and are that before them. So by definition, think of what retirement is. The common definition is you reach a certain age after years of service and you retire. And Social Security, the government has set certain ages, 62, 65, full retirement, 69, et cetera, and the like. But the real definition of retirement from a financial planning side, in my area of expertise, is when you have sufficient or adequate passive unearned income, not W-2, not 1099, unearned income that can replace your earned income. Then you can retire based on the lifestyle you desire. That doesn't have to wait or happen at age 60 plus. It could happen at 20 something if you come up with the right solution to solve enough problems and to create enough income, you can retire early. But for most Americans, that hasn't happened. It's that I put in enough years of service and here's what I'm expecting. So as a result of it, when the storm hits, we don't know how to increase our income. The basic formula is, okay, if you can't increase your income, then reduce your expenses, lower or reduce your standard of living. Most of us don't want to do that, but that's what we're forced to do. But when we do that, one of the things we look at is, again, if I can't increase my income, can I reduce my expenses? So why is that important? Because again, we talked about the storms ahead require money. They cost money. Now, some of the storms ahead, as we talked about, I'm going to keep this brief, but just think about it for a second. They are life's anxieties, and they all cost money, whether it's a sickness leading to death, a natural catastrophe, whether it be the rainy day, as we often talk about, or the major storm, roof repair, transportation, living too long, all those things projected out means we need more money, and our money needs to keep up with the other I, inflation. We can't control inflation, but yet somehow or another we hunker down and make our way through, but it's an area we can't control, so we do our best to manage it. However, there are some things that we can control, but we need to understand and take a look at what the costs are. And most oftentimes, we don't count costs, whether we're talking about literal consequences of costs or monetary costs. Here's a perfect example. A lot of people own cars, and I'm admiring your car, and I might say, how much you pay for that? And you'll give me the purchase price. We oftentimes will talk about whether you financed it, you wrote a check, et cetera. But from a standpoint of financial planning, accounting, and things of that nature, people really want to know the total cost, which includes maintenance, insurance of that, but it's not usually a topic of conversation. Well, let's take that a little bit further. I'm going to focus on one of the many assets that more people have in common than any of the other more valuable assets, and that's the home. We call a single family residence an asset. Okay, so let's agree with that for the moment. Assets, by definition, are supposed to increase in value, and then when liquidated at the right time, produce either a return on investment slash profit or an income. Well, most homes that are owned by people where they're free and clear, and close to 80% of seniors own homes, and close to 60 some odd percent in that area, they're free and clear. The others have mortgages. So if I'm not selling to get a return on my investment, how do I get it? Well, people will do a cash out refinance and say, hey, I got my money back or some of my money back. But then what do we end up doing? Turn right back around and pay it all back in principal plus the interest. But the real estate and finance community does not base it on the formula we're going to lead to in a second. It's based on equity and debt. So if I have a home that I purchased for $200,000, it's worth $1 million now, and I refinanced it for $500,000. I'll say I have $500,000 worth of equity, and that's true. And you'll say I have refinanced at $500,000 and pulled out some cash, but we never talk about how much that original loan of $200,000 cost me. Because if I borrowed $200,000 and I had to pay it back at 1.5 times, that's $350,000. That I really only got a net cash return of $150,000. Then I'm going to turn around and pay it all back. But if it's affordable, we tend to do that. In addition to that, here's the other formula we don't take into consideration. Even if I now have zero debt, the cost of owning, is that truth? The cost of owning a single family residence is ongoing. I'll repeat it. The untold truth we don't consider and don't know is the cost of a single family residence is continuous. I had the initial cost, which might have been a down payment. Then I added the services that go with the property, the utilities, insurances, cable, I mean, you name it. And then the mortgage cost, which could end unless I refinance. But even when I pay it off, those costs continue. We've appropriately defined that as borrowing further over time, negatively into the red, into the rabbit's hole. There's no way out right now using traditional strategies that we've been using for years, even into retirement. So what we looked at, instead of the home being just a money magnet for everybody else, and I think everyone on the call, especially our historians and educators, know the history of home ownership, especially from biblical times all the way forward to the US's history. Property wasn't typically given away because you got 160 acres or more. And we were an agricultural country, even back in biblical. So you didn't give away land because it provided everything for you. It was your means of food, whether you're talking meat, vegetables, water, you were self-sustaining, even in the United States. But that all changed, right? We went from agricultural to industrial, and now we're into e-commerce and everything. So the land, while it has as much value or more value, the generations before and even us and then after look at it differently. We say hang on to it, where they're saying, I just want the money from it. So if we can let go of the old adage and thinking that I'm not giving away the land because it provides everything I need, that doesn't exist anymore. The children or the generations after us want the proceeds from the property. So if we understand that, and then I were to ask the question to a homeowner, what do you expect to do with the property? Typically, the older ones will say, I want to leave it to the kids. If you ask the kids, what do they want? They say, I want the money. I don't care about that property. I don't want to live there anymore. I'm leaving, or I live in another country, or I live in another state. So we see things differently, but yet we don't communicate what the solution is. So what we've done at Tyson Financial Group is, with those illustrations, to help our clients who understand that now that the home, single family residence, is not an asset, it's a liability. Because again, you're paying out constantly, and equity itself does not produce anything. If it's not leveraged, it's just a number. And when you do think of it that way, you'll go back and conclude equity does not produce income. It doesn't pay bills. It's not protected from earthquakes and other catastrophes as far as our insurance goes. So then if you understand then how that works, you'll understand the opportunity that exists to leverage equity to do better. So using some common sense, you might ask, how can I reverse the situation? How can I get out of this problem? Or is it even possible? Well, using our island scenario, and you needed to get back to land, or you were traveling and you were in a boat and the boat were leaking, the first thing would come to mind was stop the leak to allow me to get to my destination, to secure my goal. Well, it's no different when we look at your asset bucket and your liabilities. Your assets are either growing tax now, tax deferred, or tax never, tax free. So we want to go into a bucket if we need money to even fix the boat and do our best to find tax-free dollars if they're available, or convert into tax-free dollars, because we can't control taxes.
You all are here now?
Okay. But in the area as it relates to that boat, if I'm now going to fix the leak, my next question will be, do I replace the boat or do I find a reasonable repair? How long am I going to keep the boat? So the biggest liability for people in general, not just in the US, is housing, whether it's rent or a mortgage. So the question then, back to again, how do we fix the leak in the boat, or how can we reverse the situation, is if I could eliminate your largest monthly expense, would that save you money? And the obvious answer would be yes. So when we do that, that allows us to look at the only program exclusively designed for seniors is none other than a home equity conversion mortgage, which most people refer to as a reverse mortgage. That sends chills up in many of people's minds, and they say, I'm not going to talk about it. But when you review the facts and the analytics behind it, it's one of the best options, tax-free alternatives available, that allows the bleeding or the leaking to stop in the bucket and to leverage the money to do other things with it, to create the legacy now as opposed to when we die. So here's the biggest example. I'll call it a case study. Imagine a person with a mortgage is having difficulties. Spouse just died. And they're saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. If this continues, I'm going to be living below the poverty line. I'm going to have to take money out of other accounts that are supposed to make money for them. So number one, if we stop the leaking in the bucket, I immediately increase their savings. That's immediate. If it's a $2,000 a month mortgage, we just save $24,000 a year, $240,000 in 10 years. Most seniors don't have $240,000 worth of savings or an investment sitting somewhere. Now, here's another part to reverse mortgages, even I didn't talk about it in the first part of my career in doing it. You can make payments on a reverse mortgage. What's the benefit of doing that? Unlike a traditional loan, when you make payments, it is a closed-in loan. With a reverse mortgage, you can go back and get the money. And your line of credit that's attached to it, it's not separate, increases dollar for dollar. So if I was making $2,000 a month payments, my line of credit is not just 240, it's a growing line of credit. So I've accomplished multiple things. I'm lowering my balance as well as increasing my line of credit. So when the rainy day, when the major storm hits, I have access to that 240 tax-free. Because the other options is typically to do a traditional loan, start the whole process all over again. Or I'm going to do a separate line of credit, or I'm going to use my credit card, or I'm going to liquidate my 403b, 401k, 457, pay taxes on that, and I'm still in the current situation. It's a phenomenal plan. Other hosts and radio personalities have called it a scam. It's not a scam. Think of this. Social Security, government program, not a scam. Medicare, government program, not a scam. Home equity conversion mortgage, designed by HUD, Housing Urban Development Government Agency, and insured by FHA. But we've got prominent talk show hosts and others saying don't do it. I don't say don't do it. I just say honestly look at it and tell the truth about it. Go a step further, the untold truth. You could walk into most banks right now and be a senior, and they identify that you're a senior supposed to be in a fiduciary relationship, right? Best interest of the client. They won't even mention a reverse mortgage to you. Why? It's not in their best interest, because they're looking for profits. They're looking for an ability to pay interest to their investors. Whereas reverse mortgage lenders in that space They're interested in profits, but I'll refer to it, they have deeper pockets. They're friends who understand the objective that this program was put into play by President Reagan when he was in office. The third leg, as I like to call it, to the three-legged stool, or the third pillar, to support seniors, to give them an opportunity to take advantage of all the programs available to them. It's just a deferred payment plan. It's still a mortgage. So it has to be paid, but in our respective lifetimes, whether you look at it from a business perspective or an individual perspective, if I said right now, Professor Ra, I'm going to give you $200,000, pay me back whenever. You can make payments, no payments. I'll collect my money when you pass away. But in the meantime, use your imagination and think of what you could do with that money. From a business standpoint, business owners are not focused as much on paying the rent, as it were, or backing up their salary information or how they report their income, because they don't have a mortgage to pay anymore. They can put more money into the business. And so what we're doing is not only building teams with this education, where we've got a point person like any one of you to help the seniors, their beneficiaries, their trusted advisors to understand, or if you are that trusted advisor, it's just a mortgage and it's a financing alternative to stop the leaking in the bucket, to eliminate the largest monthly expense. Now, here's the latest. We not only go from reducing monthly expense, but here's a way to turn a traditional single family residence into something we already knew about, might have been afraid, may have done it illegally, as far as a garage conversions. You've all been hearing about it. It's the ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So imagine that same widow in her property is able to build with her reverse funds, her own funds, borrows the funds. But anyway, she doesn't mind having an ADU on her property, whether it's a part of, attached, or detached. Now she went from that supposed asset that was a liability, is now an income producing asset, which also means the value is going up because she's added square footage to it. So that's just a touch of the iceberg as far as what we've been doing in reference to knowledge and information and sharing untold truths, blowing up misconceptions that many people don't understand. And oftentimes it's just the failure to have the dialogue. So I again appreciate all of you that are in attendance, that have allowed me to share these thoughts with you. I hope we'll continue, because it's a tremendous way. Because if you can do it with one property, or there's several of doing such things, then the opportunities are endless. Because if you know how to leverage the money and potentially lend it to others and get it back, we've got a strategy called advanced inheritance strategy, where you're leaving the property to me, but I'm saying I'm just going to spend it. So you teach me, like your platform, each one teach one. Teach me how to buy property. The risk has been eliminated because there's no payments to make. So that 200,000, Professor Ra, imagine if you took 10% and purchased a bunch of properties. You just raised your estate value and your potential legacy, as opposed to our sitting on it, waiting for us to die to pass on one property, when we can pass on multiple properties or multiple commercial properties with multiple families living in it. So at this time, if I'll conclude, I could go on forever because there's so many stories within the Untold Truth that if there are questions, thoughts, comments, I'd like to entertain those.
I'm about to go to the panel. Okay, since you mentioned Professor Ra name a few times, we're gonna go to Professor Ra. So Professor Ra, do you have any questions for him, or do you have a comment? Do you have you ever considered reverse mortgage?
Appreciate what you asked, if I understand correctly. I want to, first of all, thank Brother Tyson for coming on and sharing his wealth of knowledge to us about how to deal with retirement if you have property. And that's the challenge, though. You know, most African Americans don't own their homes, you know, and it's a challenge from that standpoint. Second, the question I have is, when you say ADU, what do you mean?
Thank you. Good question. As you know, we're overpopulated by many standards here in California. And it's not just happening here, but it's happening across the country. So there's a Senate bill, I can't remember the number, but ADU The acronym stands for accessory dwelling unit. You and I more commonly referred to it back in the day, or even now, as a garage conversion, or a grandmother or mother-in-law flat, where we took the garage or something in the back, and often it wasn't even permitted, and we ran electrical and everything necessary, and we're renting it out or using it out. Well, that's now part of the law, where they're allowing ADUs, junior ADUs, so we can take what was a traditional single-family residence and turn it almost into like a triplex.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The second, when you say what do you mean by the stopping the unnecessary loss of wealth?
Okay. My point of reference was that we pay out too much in interest, fees, and taxes due to lack of knowledge. And I'll give you just a couple examples using the various things. Let's use it with the property again. Our failure to do estate planning, which includes our wishes at death, but also powers of attorney if I'm incapacitated. So we do creative estate planning. I'm a widower and I'm going to put my child on title with me, not knowing if he or she has baggage or not. Fees come with that lack of knowledge. So whether I'm going to court or they're going to court to correct what I didn't correct is giving money away unnecessarily because I don't have the knowledge. So that's an example of fees. Or going to probate. Most families will die without a will or a trust. So we're going to get the property. I own it, but I've got to go to court to do it. So I'm transferring wealth because I have a lack of knowledge, or I don't understand the truths associated with avoiding probate. We talk about interest.
It's probate because one of the relatives or they're fighting over it and they can't come to a concession, or do it automatically go to probate?
Very good question. Okay, so by definition, probate is the court's way of assigning property that was not properly designated. Okay, so if I own a property, which my wife and I do, and let's say she and I currently do not have a trust, which is basically reassigning ownership out of our individual name into the name of an entity, which would be the trust. And let's keep it simple and let's just call it the Tim and Melody Tyson Family Trust. So because we didn't do that and we pass away in an accident, our children will inherit the property, but their names aren't there yet. So the court, LA County, all counties in California and similar counties across the country, will intercede to make sure the proper titling goes to the proper heirs. So that's why if you look in the paper, sometimes you might see probate announced. It allows creditors and everybody to come in. And so the court wants to make sure they've allowed everybody the opportunity to speak their piece. So everybody's coming to court to say, I'm a descendant or I'm a creditor. And the laws are already written that says who's first in line, whether it's the children, followed by parents, brothers and sisters, et cetera. So that's already determined. So if I'm your bad seed son, hypothetically create a relationship between you and me, or I'll go over to my other friend, Mr. Hembrick. Hey, Joe, I'm Joe's oldest child, and Joe can't stand me. I was just a bad seed for him. I'm going to inherit just because I'm his blood. But if that's not his wishes, that's where the power of having a living trust, you can exclude me as opposed to including me because you didn't plan. So again, if that was not Mr. Hembrick's wishes, now he's giving the property to me, transferring wealth to me, and that was not his decision. So that's another example relating to fees. And we have taxes the same way. People will say, just sell the property, not knowing what the tax consequences are.
Let's say you get in your late 70s and you decide to add your children to the deed, quit claim, or just add them to the deed to supersede a trust. Because trust can cost. If you get somebody to write them, they different people charge different amounts to get a living trust. But if you're really planning and you say, you talk it over with family and you get an agreement. You know, if you have multiple kids or kids, yeah, I'm gonna put it in the oldest name, but I'll put it in all y'all names, the property and all the other miscellaneous things. And you know, I'm trusting that y'all would treat each other right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As far as that, but to ensure it, I put all their names on the deed. Is that possible?
Yes. And a lot of people do that. And again, there are the advantages and a lot of disadvantages for doing it. I'll just touch a few, but when we're done and I get your information, anybody that's interested, I have a couple articles, and it's one of them is 15 reasons not to add your children to title. Okay, but I'll go over a couple quickly. When you put the children on title, you've given them ownership well in advance, which is okay, but here's a couple of problems. Number one, if they are in any type of lawsuit currently existing or any in the future, that baggage is coming with them. So the classic story is somebody already has a judgment. Somebody is behind on child support.
Yeah.
Okay, and you add them to title, your property that you're currently living in now has that judgment or lien attached to it.
Yeah, that you know, but they can take that under consideration and say you either got baggage, you just stay cool, and the other people will take care of you. Sometimes like that, but you know,
But you're right. You're right. But that's one of those things. If you're aware of, then certainly that's fine. But that does cut into the net return that was expected because that lien has to be paid that I created.
yeah. Well, they out of their cut, you know, they have to pay their own lien. But let me just say this.
Sure.
Yeah, because I took a couple questions. When you say retirement is a job, what do you mean?
It requires full-time attention.
Okay,
Okay.
you mean when you say attention, I mean that's like, you know, I'm retired. So most people, you know, they go on cruises, they
Exactly.
chill, you know,
Right.
on retirement.
Right.
Especially if they got a good retirement.
Right.
Good
Right.
multiple retirements, you know,
Right.
different jobs. So well, from that standpoint, the joy is that you're not laboring anymore. But what I hear you saying is put your money to work for you while you're in retirement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So let me add to that part of your question. I agree with you. It should be the way you defined it. It should be this picture behind me where you're doing little to nothing. But for the average American who does not have STIRS, PERS, or any other pension behind them, then now we're talking about less opportunity. But let's go to the extreme. Even in your situation, the way I look at it, it makes you that high worth individual who owns multiple companies, but I need to keep you in that CEO, CFO role to make sure those monies don't diminish versus a person who does not have some of the retirement benefits and privileges. They're going to have to do even more. And those are the ones who end up returning back to work because they haven't counted the cost. Here's another saying of mine that I use for the Bible principle. And it's Luke 14:28-30. It says, I changed the word. So if you know the scripture, you'll see where I changed the word. Who of you wanting to retire does not first sit down and calculate the expense to see if he has enough to do it? Otherwise, he might quit his job, but have to go back to work. And all his associates would start to ridicule him, saying, this man retired, but had to come back to work.
Yeah,
So,
that happens. You know, that happens to a lot of people. A lot of people get supplemental income through various processes, and some legal, some illegal. You know, they just not. Well, I wouldn't say illegal. Some with with risk, earning supplemental income. But the other question is, when you say retired is a state of mind, what do you mean?
We coined the phrase retired state of mind versus just retirement. So as we were talking about retirement being a job and you're constantly running around here, and here's another stat. Most wives end up becoming the caregiver of their husbands. So that's a job because they didn't plan appropriately or have the resources to pay for the care. So she's in retirement and she's working and trying to manage all the bills and finances, etc. But if I'm in a retired state of mind and I've managed everything to the best I could, then it is the scenario that you referenced. My finances are taken care of. My kids are taken care of. My legacy is well in place. I've got more than adequate income. So you have peace of mind and you are in that chair and you're not worried about very much by comparison.
All right, I got the last question.
Sure.
When you get a reverse mortgage, what are the problems that people badmouth it about? Because you know you listen to not only horror stories that they talk about from businesses and people that try to discourage you, because like you said, they don't get a profit. But there are families that say, I wish I never would have got the reverse mortgage because when I get ready to, I don't own my property anymore. I mean, because they say that money you take out, in order to get your property back, you have to start paying on it and your mortgage if you still got one. If you get your reverse mortgage and you get the equity, and then you decide, you live longer and, there come a due date. Isn't that right for that reverse mortgage?
Okay, so thank you. You asked me quite a few questions. Let me see if I make sure I answer them all too, okay? So those are some of the misunderstandings, misconceptions, and myths that I've been dealing with since when did I start? Like 1999 myself. And I did them individually. I went to Wells Fargo. We were the largest originator of reverse. And so I had to make a decision as far as my own personal.
They've been suing Wells Fargo for years.
Yeah, not over reverse mortgages. That's for their misuse on the banking side and interest rate, but not reverse, because reverse is regulated by FHA. That's why I reference it. It's that third leg that, again, reverse. This version was put into place by Ronald Reagan. So number one, it's just a mortgage. Okay. So when somebody says you don't own your home, that could be the furthest thing from the truth. You don't change title. The title would still be in any of your respective names if you were old enough or eligible to do a reverse mortgage. So that means 60 days later, 6 years later, you could refinance into another reverse or to a regular loan. Or you could decide, I don't like the area anymore. I want to move. The only difference is if you all had a twin, is the one with the reverse mortgage has a slightly higher balance, and the one who had a regular loan that was making payments has a slightly lower balance. But if you lived in the same tract, your property's appreciated equally. The only difference is, again, one didn't have a payment, put that money in his pocket. So I like to say again, if a rainy day took place, the storm hit, cousin Fred, who lives in Arkansas, passed away, and we're going to go visit his wife, who's in a better position to either assist or go visit? It's the brother that doesn't have the payment. Because again, he's holding on to the wealth while he's alive, which creates opportunity. The brother with the mortgage, he's giving his money to the lender. The lenders in reverse are lenders, but they're waiting. So they say, you keep the money. You can pay us if you want to, create a line of credit. But if you put it in your pocket, do whatever you want to with it. And there's no call date. The only call date, Professor Ra, is if I vacate the property permanently, like I go into a long-term care facility, or I die. Here's the only other story I hear that's negative other than the misunderstandings as far as who owns the property, even at death, and I'll address that in a second. is people will say reverse mortgage caused me to lose my property because I defaulted on my property taxes and insurance. That's not a reverse mortgage clause. That's a secured loan clause for any type of loan, because those of us who have regular mortgage still have to pay property taxes and insurance because we don't own the property free and clear. It's similar when you don't have a pink slip. You got to report to whoever you finance the vehicle through until you get the pink slip. Then you can go without insurance. But during that time, you have to maintain insurance. So similarly, if I default on my homeowner's insurance or property taxes, which unfortunately some seniors did, then those properties were foreclosed upon. That's not a reverse mortgage. That's bad. Again, back to money management, hence a job whose seniors didn't know how to manage their funds. Okay. Now back to, again, owning the property. When a senior passes away and there is a reverse mortgage, the lender only wants their money. So it would be no different. If we got a forward loan, mom was the sole survivor, she passed away, we pick up the phone because we can't assume her loan and say, my mother passed away. They'll allow you to keep paying. We won't receive any benefits, but the lender just says, okay, what are you going to do? And if we're going to retain the property, we say we're going to refinance it, pay your loan off, and we're going to pay our own loan. It's the same thing with a reverse mortgage. Are you going to sell, or are you going to retain the property? And if so, we need your mother's loan paid off. And now the family, the survivors, the beneficiaries make payments or write a check. But it's no different. Okay. Did I cover all your questions?
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna let somebody else go.
All right. Thanks, Professor Rob. Historian Joe?
Yes, sir. What's up, Tim?
What's going on, Big Joe?
Not a whole lot. I got a little bone to pick with you.
Regarding reverse or something else?
No.
All right, let's do that off the air.
So I think the public needs to hear this part, because if I had known, I'd have did it different.
If you had known, you would have done what?
If I'd have known, I would have probably done different.
Oh,
As far as life insurance goes,
okay.
then can I go there?
Sure.
Well, it's I bought all my policies from you.
Okay. Okay.
And I kind of outlived them, and I should have been on whole life instead of universal life, because the older I got, the payments kept getting bigger. If I could have been on whole life, could have been making the same payment with the same amount upon death. So that I had to cut two of them loose, because it just got too expensive to maintain. That's my only gripe. But as far as the reverse mortgage stuff goes, now this is only on owner-occupied property, correct?
That is correct. It's on the single family, well, up to 4 units, owner occupied. Let me address the insurance thing real quick. As you, just quickly for everybody's benefit, as you know, I'm an advocate for education. And I'm sure we went through the differences between term, universal life, and whole life. And as you just mentioned, why people like whole life is, again, the cost is fixed. But initially, it's much more expensive than any other policy because it is taking into consideration age factoring. Whereas people buy term, which made A.L. Williams popular, buy term and invest the difference. Even the Auto Club and others are selling term because of cost, what it is, or I should say price. But as you just mentioned, who's discussing the price over the entire life of the person? So I'm an advocate of, again, knowledge, information, and allow the consumer to decide which fits their scenario. Is it a blend of policies? Let me buy a term policy because I can get it, $1 for $1 million and it'll cover all my debt. But if I exceed that 30-year or 40-year term, now what am I going to do? Hopefully your debt has been extinguished. And then now it's just having that permanent policy to cover some things towards the end, final expenses and things of that nature. So it's always been my position, always trying to educate and ultimately allow my customer prospects to make the decision based on that information. You might ask me my opinion, what do I think? But oftentimes it came down to, I can't afford that. I don't want to pay that much. And so we always kind of push back. And that's where Universal might have fallen. I don't remember all the details with you, but Universal is a blend of the two. And if we don't have enough cash value to support the policy, then as you just mentioned, it becomes expensive or could crash and burn, similar to the term policies. So, okay, I'm sorry. So now back to your question regarding reverse.
I still have one of the universals, but I got three at that time.
Do you still have the girls' policies?
Oh yeah.
Okay, see.
And matter of fact, she's the youngest. She's graduating from medical school in a couple of months.
That would be my aunt, right?
Yes.
All right, congratulations.
And on a reverse mortgage, okay, let's say that I do one, and I get $200,000-300,000 from saving from not making things, and then let's say I die, and my heir would have to make up that money that I wasn't paying on the mortgage to
Okay.
right, but
Okay.
then without it being I think that's some of the things people are talking about. Like if
Okay.
you get one and then you die, your heirs kind of lose out, especially if they're not in a position to make up the money, that the parent was not paying on the mortgage. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So let me explain and make sure I'm hearing you right. I'm giving you the answer and tell me if I answered everything you asked. Okay, so number one, the objective of all recently designed reverse mortgages based on that housing, urban development design, and FHA is to pay off your existing debt. Okay, so there are some additional, we call them proprietary, where private lenders went beyond FHA numbers and are insuring or doing loans on multi-million-dollar properties. So number one, we want to extinguish your existing debt. So that creates, again, an immediate savings. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But it doesn't take up all of your equity. The average in the formula is the value of the property, the age of the borrower, and they take the younger of the two between the spouses, and then whatever the current interest rate on the program you're using, and they come up with a number. So the older a person is, the more value the property could be in the same neighborhood, et cetera. The older person is going to get more money because you're closer to life expectancy or death. So with that money, we pay off your existing loan, and then to follow suit with what your thoughts were. If we paid off your loan and you had an extra 200,000, number one, that 200,000, you can do anything you want with it. I call it, again, advance inheritance. Help your kids now as opposed to them waiting for you to die. Allowing you to help them now also eliminates the potential that one child's children may not get anything, because back to succession in beneficiary line, if there are 4 children that are scheduled to receive monies at your demise, if one of them goes before you do, then it's down to 3, which means you might exclude the 3 grandchildren behind that deceased child. So being able to distribute, or back to what Professor Rob mentioned earlier, having in a living trust, you could write it out specifically how you want the money to flow, as opposed to the court deciding or you putting it in order. Now the kids are having to debate, fight over who should have how. And I've seen and experienced some ugly stories, Professor Rob, where money changes lives and relationships quickly. There were some disputes in my family and other families that I know, because family members didn't do what they were told to do or what you thought they were going to do, because then they became entitled and said, well, here's what I should do. Just a quick sidebar. Sorry about that, Joe. So then at passing, let's say the balance went from, I paid off my existing loan, 200. I got another 200 in my hand. The balance went from 400 and increased to 600, and I pass away. Now I'm going to pull your relationship in with your wife, Linda. So imagine Linda does not predecease you. Nothing happens. She still occupies the home. It does not affect her. And right now, as we're talking, just purely, all of us, if we're married and we predecease our wives, it's going to affect our household income, because a check is gone, benefits are gone. And like you're mentioning, if we don't have adequate insurance and we've got a tremendous amount of debt, we're going to put some pressure on our spouses. So the ability to not have a mortgage, or to turn that asset that was not producing income from a single family residence now into an ADU income producing asset, our wives are better off again, or good with that. But to continue the story, now we've got a surviving spouse, 200, 400, up to 600. The loan reaches $1 million, and the property, let's say, is only worth 750 because of the insurance of FHA. the family can never owe more than what the property is worth. So even if the loan balance went to 2 million and the property's still only 750, FHA is going to sell the home for 750 and remove the family from any collection of the remaining balance. That's where the FHA insurance comes in. So we call it a non-recourse loan. There's no recourse. There's no going after the family, no additional assets to be requested for repayment. But let's take what's more of the norm. Let's say the property continues to appreciate along with the loan balance, but the property is now worth 1.2 and the loan balance is $1 million. Well, your family would still have control, sell the property for 1.2 million, pay off your $1 million loan, and they'd split the remaining 200,000. Just like a regular loan, the balance would just be less. So when that's understood, families start looking at it differently because now we're talking about a liquidity benefit that says, I don't have to wait to die to give my child something. And we really
Froze up.
Yeah, he froze. Miss Tyson, are you there? Okay. Something must have happened to his internet.
facility.
Okay, you was froze for about 30 seconds there.
All right. I don't know what part was lost. Maybe I was talking about the leveraging of the money to give an advance inheritance, to do something with the money while you're alive. I called it the advance a bequest strategy. Because people do donate their homes, but instead of waiting for you to die, they use the money while they're alive and watch it happen.
Now, what is the percentage of equity that you have to have in your home in order to do it?
That's a good question. So again, it's not based on the percentage of equity you have as opposed to you are a homeowner. So just for the sake of this illustration, everybody on here is a homeowner, figuratively speaking. I think most of you are, as well as I am. And let's say we're all eligible by age. All I need to know are dates of birth, estimated value of the property, and I'll pull comps to see what's going on. And then I come back and say, here's the number that's available to you. Then from there, to determine if it will work or not, the next question we need to know is what's your balance? Because again, we are desiring to pay off the existing loan. So a rough number and changes, and again, the higher the interest rate, the lower the percentage based on the age of the borrower. Right now at 62 is somewhere close to 35 to 40% of the estimated value. And again, the older you are, the higher that number goes, all things being consistent. But when interest rates go down, that number increases, just as you think of loan to value ratios very similarly.
Quick question. Do you have to own the house outright, as far as, you don't have any more, the house is paid off in order to get a reverse mortgage?
No. Matter of fact, I'll tell my extreme story. Before they made the changes and adding income evaluations and assessment to make sure people didn't foreclose, I used to go knock on doors of people who were in foreclosure. So credit wasn't an issue then, and you knew they had, some issues, but the whole objective is to pay off the loan. If you got a loan and we can pay it off, that's the goal, because now you got an immediate savings. So free and clear is great, but there are more people with loans who desire to do reverse, because it's like, man, if I could eliminate my mortgage, I could retire, right? Because that's your largest monthly expense. And that's what I was referring to, those business owners. Because like my biggest need as an entrepreneur, biggest expense is me taking a salary from my business to pay my mortgage. But if a business owner says, I don't have a mortgage anymore, I don't have to take as big as an income, report all that income as it relates to taxes. I can put that money back into the business, stay afloat during COVID. And that's what the conversations were for those that I was able to help. They were able to survive versus, man, I had to close my business. Why? Business wasn't producing as much, and I was still pulling money to pay my mortgage, and my inventory wasn't there. I couldn't pay the lease, blah, 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 blah. So again, to answer your question, no, you don't have to be free and clear. And that's a way, again, to stop having to make that payment back at 1.5, 2 times what you borrowed. You put it back in your pocket. Or if you want to pay it, remember, with a reverse mortgage, they allow you to pay it and watch your line of credit increase. So you become your own bank. You can go in and out of that account. Rainy day fund. Hey, I need a new car. I'm going to put 30,000 out of my line of credit and pay myself back. Watch that 30,000 grow. Something else happened. I'm going to get it from myself and pay it back and deduct the interest. So it's a beautiful product once you see it and understand it. And I'm glad you guys have those questions. Keep them coming, whether now, later, because the more you understand it, it's, again, back to what Professor Rob was asking me. Now you're managing your assets in your portfolio instead of just being the beneficiary of income. It's like, well, what can I do with it while I'm alive? You guys are all brilliant thinkers. It's just an opportunity to say, let me help somebody else. Let me teach somebody. Let us all get into owning some properties. And that's still the thing. That's the one thing most of us, even if we don't fully understand, we get the gist of real estate in America. Watching some of our friends, some of us on this station or right now owned rental properties, the ability to turn a single family residence into an income producing property. Hey, that's cool. You could still live there. Think of this. You're living in the main house and got a junior ADU in the front or a regular ADU attached in the back or standing freely, but you still claim ownership of the main house, collecting rents. And some people will keep a regular loan on it because now you've reversed the money and then go buy a vacation home and call it their principal residence using a reverse mortgage. You can use a reverse mortgage to purchase property. Go buy a new home. It's a $400,000 house. You put 200 down. Reverse covers the other 200, and you make no more payments and own your old house back in LA County. Now you got multiple properties and income coming from the old house and no payments in the new house. It's a beautiful story when we get into it.
All right, we got 2 other people. Let me get them in.
Okay.
Brother Mashenda. Are you there? Okay, let's go to Brother Doctor.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead. Do you have a question or comment? What's going on?
Um, yeah, I kind of missed the beginnings. I don't know Mr. Tyson's background, but I just hear we're talking about reverse mortgages, and I heard him say something about taking 200,000 out, and next thing you owe 400,000, 600,000, 800,000. I missed something. What did I miss? How did that happen?
I'm sorry about that. So to bring you up to speed, well, just quickly, degree in economics, been doing financial planning since the late 80s. From A to Z, I've assisted young and old, and my spot now is more so working with the mature audience, retirees that need retirement planning and estate planning assistance. So reverse mortgage is one of the products that's a part of my portfolio, in addition to consulting for retirement planning, which a whole nother conversation, but getting into tax-free bucket of monies, transferring your qualified plans into that. So your question, Mr. Hembrick had asked a question in reference to a reverse mortgage, and I was just using an illustration that if you had a loan balance of 200 and received an additional 200, you would then have a balance after paying off your existing loan and 200 in hand of 400,000. And then I was saying that the reverse mortgage is an increasing negatively amortized loan, that the balance, if it went from 200, 400, then 600, and I was using
Okay,
a progressive.
wait. What is negative? So you're saying, give an example. My house is paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're saying if I took 200,000 off, I'm getting pretty much. I heard about reverse mortgages, but I need 200,000, and much as I understand, I don't have to pay that back until I die, right?
That's correct.
But you're telling me that 200,000 is going to be going up?
That's what I'm implying by negative.
Negatively?
That's what
on
I'm
my house?
You know why though, right?
No, I don't. That's why I'm asking. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't know why. Why would it go up?
As soon as I tell you the answer, you'll say, okay, that makes sense. Because you're not making any payments.
Okay, and why
Right,
I'm
it'd be
not making payments?
Right. It'd be similar to your credit card.
Right.
Miss a payment on your credit card, what happens to your balance the next month?
So
Goes up, right?
yeah.
Okay. So when it was designed, the whole issue, and Reagan was in office when he did, it's the third leg of government
Well,
funding.
let me ask you this. Since you brought up credit cards.
Uh-huh.
So if I have a credit card and I have, say, 10,000 on it,
Uh-huh.
and would you recommend as a financial advisor not to make payments and let that go up? Make the minimum and let that go up?
That all depends.
Yes or no?
No, it's not.
If I had,
watch this.
I
Watch
got a
this.
credit card
Watch this.
and I took out 10,000, I owe 10,000, I make the minimum payments,
Mhm.
and it just keep going up and up.
On a credit
That
card,
is good financial.
on a credit card, I suggest you make the payment because they're two different products.
No, because you brought up the credit card example. That's
Right. But I'm just referencing. Why did
so
I
you
do
would
that?
do that on your house though?
Why did I do that though? Just for
Yeah.
relevance or the comparison of an increasing balance. Just saying because a payment is not made. So you would understand that. That's all. Not that the products
Okay.
are the same.
Okay.
By
No,
no
no,
means they're not the same.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's kind of like the same. I don't know anything about Voice Mercantile. I didn't know it would go up like a credit card that you don't make payments. So I can take a 200,000 out, and I think I heard you say 62, and say I'm 82, never made payments for 20 years, so now I owe 600,000.
I was pulling that number from the air. That again varies.
Oh, okay.
Depends on the interest rate. Yeah.
But is that close?
That was a hypothetical.
I know I didn't know that.
But what you may have missed, let me say this.
Yeah.
What you may have missed
Wow.
is that here's the formula. Reverse mortgage available funds are based on the age of the borrower, the current interest rate of the program being used, and the value of the property. So if we're all over 62, different ages, different houses, we're going to get up with different numbers. But now create the same. We've got the same value.
So what would the rates be? Would it be based on the common rates, like say like now is 7, 8%, 6%? Is it going to be? And
Yes.
you're not making payments?
It's very competitive to whatever current rates are.
Woo!
Do you see? Is that a good woo or a bad woo?
No, you know what, man? I did not, be honest, I did not know. I always see the commercials. I'm thinking, okay, I take out 200,000. I just got to pay that 200,000 back before I die. I've never thought about the interest rates though on it. I did not know that, man.
Yeah. But here,
wow.
From a positive, I'm not sure.
So let me ask you this then, because you were saying take the 200,000 out by the ADU. Wouldn't it just make sense to come up with 20 grand, 10% or 20% and buy another house or ADU and put renters in that and not put your house in danger of getting lost at 6% and
wait a minute, let me ask you this. How would it be getting at risk? Tell me so I'm clear.
Because first of all, you borrowing 200,000, you retirement, something's wrong.
Okay,
and
how is it a
reverse mortgage? Ooh,
how is it at risk?
It's just my opinion. Just my opinion. I'm nobody. I'm not a financial advisor.
No. But this is again the dialogue I want to have because
why wouldn't I take like let's say $200,000 house, 10%, 20,000, 20%, 40,000. My thing is always because you were talking about the kids, helping the kids out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're retired and you're in trouble and you take out 200,000, you're still going to be in trouble. If you can't pay off, if you don't have 20,000, 30,000 in the bank now, I don't think you should be taking out a $200,000 loan negatively. Woo!
Watch this.
Only thing I would say, you need to start paying it back from day one. Making payments from day one instead of letting it. Woo!
Okay, watch this.
Okay, I'm done. You can go to the next person.
No. I want to address you because you're stating some things with some partial untold truth or understanding. Every situation is different. I gave some extremes.
Right.
You might be in a better situation where the 20,000 example is better. And when I do my consulting and sit with the client, again, we go over all of the truth. That's why this is referred to as the untold truth, because it may be better. I'll give you a perfect example. I'll come back to what you're saying. You'll hear somebody say, to improve your situation, just downsize. sell your home and
Correct, correct,
downsize,
correct,
right?
correct.
That makes sense on paper. But when they say that, they never look at the tax implications. Because if I bought the house for back in the day at 50,000 and it's worth $1 million, how much am I paying taxes on? I'm downsizing. It's $1 million. I bought it for 50. How much am I paying taxes on?
The
See that
million,
question? Go ahead.
the million.
Say again.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah, you plan on the value. It says value from the tax assessor from your county.
No, it's the purchase, the selling price. I bought it for 50.
All right.
I'm selling it for $1 million.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you went somewhere else and you're written in that and you're still paying taxes on that. Oh, you're selling it.
I'm selling it.
Oh yeah. You're
I'm
gonna pay
paying
taxes on.
on.
Yeah, you're gonna pay the difference from what you if you bought it at 50. If you sell it at 100, you're just gonna pay a tax on the 50,000 capital gain.
Right, but if I bought it,
Right.
if it's not worth $1 million, I'm paying taxes on $950. Right?
You talking about if you stand in the house?
No. I'm selling it for $1 million.
Oh no, you spent 950. Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct.
People will give the answer downsize without even knowing what tax bracket I'm in or what other holdings I have. So it's just not a one size fits all. Even if I have a loan against it, the cost basis was what I purchased it at, and then what I sell it at. And then if I'm taking the 950, it's
Correct.
950 in that 1 year, and I don't break it up, it's 950,000, whatever my other income was for the year. So if I got a W-2 for 100 and a 1099 for 50, I'm in the highest possible tax bracket.
Right. Unless
I do something creative, right?
Right. You go buy another house worth 950 or $1 million, right? You have to pay, right.
So that's what
like
I'm
you
talking
said, you got some creative moves. I know about
Right.
it.
So that's what I'm saying.
But you got to reinvest that into real estate or some kind of investment to downsize your tax planning.
There we go.
Correct.
So when I was using the 200,000 and the ADU, I was using creative strategy without knowing any specifics. So I don't want you to conclude that my strategies are bad. It may not be the best for your situation, but it might be, God sent paradise for somebody else. Because watch this. You don't have to do a reverse mortgage to do an ADU, as you know.
Correct.
Okay? Because if the numbers work, it's like when we refinance, I couldn't pay rent right now, what we're paying, probably similar to you guys, for my mortgage. So I don't want to, I'm not 62 yet. I'm 61 later this month. But when I turn 62, if I'm going to do the FHA version, my wife and I, we're not going to do a reverse on this property. Even if we rented it out and did the ADUs and paid for it for ourselves. Because if we collect rent from anybody, junior ADU in the back, it's going to be more than what our mortgage is. So it wouldn't make sense. So it'd be, okay, I'm going to hustle to find the money or the down payment to build the ADUs, or we're going to go buy another property and rent everything out here. The main house, the ADUs, all of that. So it's back to, again, depends. It's just an option, right? What bucket do I go to finance or pay for this other thing? I need a new car. I need a new roof. I'm either going to write a check, finance it, or I'm going to liquidate something. Those are the three choices. And so if I'm going to finance it, it's like, where do I get the money from? Do I go into my house and do a regular loan, HELOC, or do I do a reverse mortgage? There's conversation and benefits for each one. Or do I just write the check? Because if I write the check or liquidate something and it was making money, it's gone forever, unless I find a way to put it back. And so dealing with the reverse mortgage, because you can make payments, you're just paying yourself back. It's an open-ended loan. It's an open-ended line of credit, unlike a traditional loan that the lenders are going,
Well, let me ask you, will the interest rate ever change, or is that locked in over that you're not paying back? Does
Good
that
question.
varies?
We have fixed and variable, and the adjustable is moving. Cap on it of 5%. Another program has a cap of 10%. And when the interest rates move and move up, any money in your line of credit is being credited at that same increase. So if you had 100,000 sitting in your line of credit, you did a reverse mortgage, you pulled some money off, paid off your existing loan, had a reverse mortgage at 100, it's just sitting there. And interest rates are, like you said, close to 7%. Your line of credit at the end of the year is going to be $107,000+. Still at 7%. Year later, 107,000 plus 7% interest. Year two balance. So now you can look and go, wow, my line of credit is increasing. If rates go down, you have the same thing happening. Line of credit doesn't grow as fast. And if you're making payments, you get the best of both worlds. I call it having your cake and eating it too. Your loan balance is going down, not as much as a traditional loan, but it's going down. But the benefit is that line of credit is increasing. So you have the ability to sell when you want to, refinance into a regular loan, refinance into another reverse loan, use your line of credit, and no payments. I always go, that's what you heard me earlier, or if you didn't hear me, I was saying to my other brothers, if you leverage the power of the reverse as a business person, and you kind of mentioned this, taking the 200 and putting down payments on properties, imagine that. You're not bringing the risk back to your principal residence because you don't have a payment to make. You can make payments, but if it's like, if they're a little slow to pay, they don't know I have a reverse and I don't have to pay, but I'm not going to tell them that I need my money from my renters. But if the pain is not coming home, you could blow up your estate holdings or real estate holdings rather quickly and without the risk. We call it risk aversion versus a traditional. And that's why most of us, especially people, Black, brown, we of color, understand real estate probably more than anything else. We don't understand the stock market other than prices went up and down, etc. But we don't know how to manipulate, move, own, don't even have, major interest in those companies. We might own shares, but still not a major play holder. But we know about some real estate. And so the ability to purchase and not have to worry about, I got a payment to make, lowers my propensity and my fear of making that purchase. Because it would be the same thing. If I could go out of state, take 200,000 and buy 4 properties at 50,000 each, just keep it simple. I own 4 properties and I'm collecting rents from each. I can make a payment to the reverse mortgage if I want to. Or if it's like, hey, I want my lifestyle to be based on these rents I'm collecting, it's party central for me. But back to what I was saying, Professor Ruppert, you're still working, but it's at a different level. Right now, you're managing those assets. You're not physically doing anything. It's just a matter of, well, where you at, Professor Rupp? And it's like, oh, I was over here looking at my properties over here on the East Coast, and I left there and went down to Florida and hung out for a minute with my boys and played some golf. Or I'm at the Masters down here in Georgia because your properties took you there. So if we take California dollars, California equity with no payments, what could you do with it? I'm going to share one other quick story. This will be something we can talk about on another occasion. We're doing the same thing with a strategy of taking qualified dollars, 401k, 403b, 457, IRA monies, washing them, paying the taxes so we don't have to worry about future potential increases, and putting it in the tax-free bucket of a Roth IRA conversion, and then putting it in a self-directed Roth IRA, which allows you to own almost anything under that Roth IRA, tax-free. So imagine owning a bunch of properties under your Roth IRA, tax-free for the rest of your lives, for the rest of your beneficiaries' lives when you pass away. It's a whole nother strategy that we haven't even addressed.
Yeah.
But those are the untold truths about retirement.
Well, look, that was a wealth of information there, and we have to break it down into some single shows. But that's a lot of information, and it's good that you coming on and educating us about it. And so what we'll have some continuous shows coming up, and I appreciate you coming on, planting that seed.
It was a pleasure. Thanks to everyone, especially you, my brothers on the panel, because you gave me an opportunity as well to see that there's a lot more information and education that's needed in the space. And I don't mind sharing. It's like anything else you all have knowledge on that some of us don't in your areas of expertise. And that's, as again, your platform, each one teach one, that it's a community. Because if we're now all rocking and rolling like that and have the knowledge and resources to help each other at that level, we can call many more of our own shots. So I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to sharing more.
Right. So now next week we have Professor Ife Jai coming back on, and the topic's going to be graffiti, art versus vandalism, because she's definitely in the hip hop arena. So, and that art and you know, the graffiti is a part of hip hop. So that's who we have next Wednesday. And then on Sunday, let me share the screen. I mean, Saturday, let me share the screen. We have a special edition show coming on. We have a roots reggae artist, Klata Boombo. He's on the East Coast and he was raised in Jamaica. So it's an excellent reggae artist. And I want to talk to him about his art, which is reggae, roots reggae. So Professor Ra, who we got on Tuesday?
LeGrand Clegg.
Okay, Grand Clegg. All right. So I appreciate it, Brother Tyson. And thanks everybody for coming out. But we're going to take our pause and each one teach one in Conscious Corner. Have a good evening.
Thanks again.
Hey, Tim.
Yes, Jeff.